All right, welcome back. So we'll dive right into this, but please remember there is a guidebook and it's not an extensive read. You can check that out. It'll be posted somewhere along with this video. And I know there will be some other recordings of this video that are going to be kind of creatively done, which will be really neat. So in chapter 2, the mechanics of the disk and the solar groove. Let us now shift our attention to the physical mechanics of the living Earth system, a structure not born of theoretical assumption, but shaped entirely from direct observation from the rhythms and reflections that have always been available to us, if we choose to see. We live on a disk, a circular flat structure that rotates counterclockwise, much like a record player underneath the tone arm of time. This foundational motion gives rise to one of the most basic truths of our daily lives. The sun appears to rise in the east and set in the west, but this appearance is not caused by the sun orbiting us. Rather, it is the disk beneath us that turns, sweeping our fields of vision past the fixed local sun. The sun is not millions of miles away. It is not a nuclear force. It is not necessarily universal the way we understand it. It is local, fixed, and real. Its behavior, however, is far more elegant than any orbital dogma could account for. Think of the sun as the stylus of the record player, not touching the grooves, but hovering just above them. Each groove is a path. There are 365 of them, each representing a day of the solar year. In each day, the sun advances just one groove, moving either slightly inward or outward from the center of the disk. In this system, the inner groove represents the June solstice, the peak of the northern summer. The outer groove represents the December solstice, the peak of the southern summer. As the sun phases from groove to groove, slowly drifting across this magnetic field between poles, it carves the season into time itself. This drift is not up or down, it is not vertical, it is radial, a smooth harmonic oscillation between the northern and southern attractors. This is the solar codex. The hidden rhythm behind the figure 8 analemma photographed over year-long time lapses across Earth. The infinity symbol traced in the sky is not metaphor, it is memory. The confirmation is not speculative, it's measurable. In the north, the days begin to grow longer after the winter solstice as the sun phases incrementally inward towards the center. In the south, the opposite occurs. It is the perfect inverse, a magnetic mirror, and each side gains or loses light in precisely the same quantities the other experiences. The solar movement is not arbitrary. It is harmonically governed, as if we pulled between two magnetic poles. These are not theoretical abstractions. They are detectable. Nowhere in this dual field nature more clear than at the equator, the electromagnetic boundary between the hemispheres, the zero line where polarity shifts. The Coriolis effect, often misused as globe proof, actually offers stunning support that this two-pole system. At locations just north of the equator, water spirals in one direction down a drain. Just south, it spirals the other. But on the equator itself, the effect vanishes. Water falls straight down. This null zone, this vibrational fault line, is proof of dual attractor magnetic structures. Quarters dropped, pendulum swung, and fluids observed have all demonstrated this harmonic inversion across the equatorial boundary. I fucked that one up, didn't I? These dynamics align precisely with the motion of the solar stylus. The sun gradually phases out towards the edge, reaching its furthest extent on December 21st, before reversing, not because it orbits, but because it is magnetically pulled back toward the opposing pole. This motion, this breath of light, is the true cause of seasons. There is no sunrise or sunset, only our disk rotation carrying us past the light. This is not belief, it is not myth, it is observation, encoded into the grooves of the Earth Codex, waiting to be remembered. So yes, quick on chapter 2 and the things it talked about real fast. The Coriolis effect, like that one's cool, right? Where people drop the quarters in the thing and it spins. I mean, as a kid, you'd hear like, hey, the water spins in other parts of the world the other way when you flush the toilet, right? So, but, when people start investigating how much electromagnetics interplay into this, if you want to call it matrix or ether or underlying fabric of reality of everything, how maybe quantum entanglements connected, we don't know. And there's stuff that we can say we don't necessarily know right now, and I would say that's one of them. So yeah, before we go, just know how much, as we get in this next section, how much we do see that. And it would make sense, for that infinity path. And also, real quick, on a side note, there is a ton of symbology on that. But let's continue on this. But that back and forth path as that disk goes around, it's just like this, right? From a solar year and through the seasons. And that is why it is easily represented too, why the arc changes and it is represented and observed the way it is. So, all right, chapter 3 dives more into those magnetic attractors and the celestial pole paradox. Let us now anchor our model into the magnetic architecture of the Earth system, the dual pole dynamic that defines both orientation and boundary. The north celestial pole, marked by Polaris, and the diffused attractor field in the south, often called the south celestial pole. Polaris, the fixed north. High above the center of our rotating disk lies Polaris, the North Star. For millennia, cultures have used it for navigation, not because it wanders, but precisely because it does not move. Stand anywhere in the northern hemisphere, particularly closer to the Arctic region, and Polaris remains suspended nearly fixed in the night sky. Its apparent stillness is due to its near perfect alignment with the spindle of the celestial mechanism. The same way we center peg of a spinning record holds the geometry of motion around it. Time-lapse photography proves this. Polaris remains at the center while the rest of the stars spin in concentric circles, always counterclockwise if you're facing north. This rotation aligns with the counterclockwise motion of the Earth disk itself, a motion that causes both sunrise and sunset. What's critical is you can stand beneath Polaris at or near the North Pole and see that what is represented as the axis aligned directly above. This is a single point of convergence, a physical, optical, and electromagnetic conformation. The South Celestial Paradox. But what of the South? This is where our model sharply diverges from the standard globe. The South Celestial Pole, as taught in conventional science, suggests a mirror-like counterpart to Polaris, a fixed point around which southern stars rotate clockwise. However, no star marks this pole, no single southern Polaris exists. Instead, navigators historically have used the Crux constellation and extend its long axis approximately 4 times to estimate the location. That is why it is the South Cross, and that is the Crux, and that is again symbology into the Yeshua archetype or Jesus metaphor, story, however you want to embrace that. So here's the observational problem. There's no single location where observers from across the southern hemisphere can all stand and see the same clockwise star rotation at the same clock time. A person in Australia, another in South Africa, and one in Patagonia may see similar southern star rotations, but only at different times. Due to their separate longitudinal positions, unlike Polaris, there is no stand beneath it moment. In our model, where the south is the magnetic boundary, not a central axis, this makes perfect sense on a flat disk. Antarctica forms a perimeter, not a singular point. Observers near the southern edge look inward towards the center, and due to the counterclockwise rotation of the disk, the stars appear to move clockwise overhead. But this rotation is always from the edge, not around a single southern apex. Magnetic structure, not symmetry. This dual dynamic reinforces the magnetic nature of the Earth Codex system. The north is a centralized magnetic origin, an axis of stillness, stability, and convergence. The south is a magnetic attractor field, a radial limit, a boundary of containment. This asymmetry explains why the firmament appears more compressed in altitude near the southern regions, why flight paths and instrument behave anomalously, and why access to Antarctica remains tightly restricted. The so-called South Celestial Pole is not a pole in the structural sense. It's a field phenomena, one distributed along the boundary, not fixed at a point. This fundamentally challenges the globe paradigm, while matching the exact observations made from every southern position on Earth. Magnetics, entropy, and thermal dynamics. Another observational alignment with our model lies in the temperature extremes at both magnetic boundaries. The Arctic and the Antarctic, in both regions, we find some of the coldest, most inhospitable climates on Earth. This isn't merely due to sunlight angles or atmospheric conditions, it reflects something deeper: the energetic nature of magnetic polarity. High-intensity magnetic fields, particularly at the poles, act not as generators of heat, but as field stabilizers. The intense order and coherence at these poles resist entropic expansion, which is normally associated with heat. Heat is a symptom of disorder, vibration, and dissipation, the opposite of what's occurring at the centralized magnetic attractors. So why the equatorial regions, full of dynamic phase exchange and photonic stimulation, abound in heat, the poles serve a different function. They maintain coherence, filter flux, and regulate the phase boundaries of our system. Their coldness is not deficiency, it's a feature of stability. Cold preserves form, heat dissolves it. In our model, this balance is essential. The North Pole anchors stillness beneath Polaris. The South magnetic perimeter absorbs the systematic overflow, balancing the entire field as the sun phases from one attractor to the other. This interplay helps sustain the recurring cycles of light, life, and consciousness that define the solar Codex system. Chapter 3 establishes the magnetic skeleton of our domain is not mirrored, but complementary, the fixed apex above, Polaris counterbalanced with the distributed attractor below, the Antarctic edge. Next, we'll explore the most beautiful and mathematically revealing phenomena born from this dynamic, the solar anomaly, the path of the sun traced across our sky over a full year. Before we go to that, one thing that I do believe I talk about in the guidebook, and I can definitely reference it here now, is if you also look at a toroid and how electromagnetics and what we're finding about these dielectrical fields, if I understand it that way, they have to have a boundary. So like that is the magnetic structure itself. And so for a massive system to have that type of structure that's required, there needs to be a lot of coherence. So that makes sense even as just a simple observation that we see across many other sciences. So let's continue. Chapter 4, the solar path. Time-lapse signatures and the anomaly. And it is also said analemma. I believe it's both ways pronounced. If you've ever seen a time-lapse photo of the sun taken from a fixed location over the course of a year, you've likely seen a distinct pattern, an elegant continuous loop resembling an infinity symbol or the number 8. This shape is known as the analemma, or how we have referred to it as also the anomaly, to distinguish the organic and toroidal expression in our framework. But what is this shape actually showing us? In the globe model, the analemma is typically explained through axial tilt and elliptical orbits. However, in the flat spinning disk model, we're representing the solar figure 8 as a direct result of two primary dynamics. A counterclockwise spinning disk, the entire Earth system rotates like a record player, giving rise to the predictable east to west appearance of sunrise and sunset, the phasing. A sun fixed above, phasing across magnetic grooves. The sun is not orbiting us, it's fixed locally, hovering above the disk like a record needle that doesn't scratch the surface, but instead hovers above it. Day by day, it incrementally drifts, phasing from the inner north grooves near Polaris, June solstice, to the outer southern grooves, near the Antarctic magnetic boundary, December solstice, and back again. Each groove translates into a shift in the sun's apparent altitude and path across the sky, producing longer or shorter days. It's this drift across magnetic grooves, not a tilt or orbit, that creates seasonality and causes the observed solar path to vary throughout the year. The sun's slow oscillation in and out, combined with spinning Earth disk, gives rise to the figure 8 analemma. This is not an abstract diagram. This is what the camera sees. Universal paths across location. What makes this even more powerful is it's repeatable across observers. Regardless of where one is, so long as one remains fixed in one place and records the sun's position daily, then an analemma pattern emerges. Its shapes may tilt depending on latitude, but the recursive harmonic motion is universal. This supports our model in two ways. It confirms that the inward and outward solar phasing from pole to pole as a magnetic response. It reflects a toroidal rhythm, a harmonic breathing, not that the sun itself, but of the disk magnetic phase regulation. Watch your mind, ladies, if I slip there. Encoded time and memory. The analemma is not just spatial, it's temporal. It encodes the solar memory of a year embedded in the sky. It represents a time signature, a kind of celestial clock etched by light. And when we recall the firmament's role as a living echo membrane, we begin to see the analemma not as a mere solar tracing, but as a reflected waveform, a cosmetic feedback loop between sun, field, and consciousness. Another trinity. So before we finish that chapter 4 and take another quick break, so I know maybe there was some redundancy in the disc and the arm, tonal arm, but there are some people that they need it kind of repeated, so it's understood that way. I myself need to learn that way a lot of times. I have to reread a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, the coolest thing about this part in chapter 4 is again, no matter where you're at on Earth, you can take a camera, and if you do time-lapse photos, and as long as they don't block out the fucking sun every day, and you can see it, like, it's going to show some type of infinity symbol, which those close to me know that's a synchronicity for me, and that's a whole different element of life. Thank you, Carl Jung, for talking about it so in depth, but not to get off track. But yes, so that's what's really cool about that observation, and it follows, a lot of ancient civilizations in the way that they used the stars as a clock and seasons as that clock for them, right? And we know that. We've just been given a different calendar. And for me too, spiritually connecting to this, I don't represent the Gregorian, and people can say, "Oh, that's silly. Why don't you?" That's what we all. Okay, well, that's fine. You can go out on the alleged New Year and go do whatever, man. I'm not. This is a no fault zone type of thing. It's just from my understanding, the ancients knew for us to be more in touch with our own energy balances, we had to sit inside that structure that the universe gives us. So the New Year is spring equinox. And so that is when, for us in the north, we start getting day, but it doesn't matter. It's a balance of light. And September's a big one too for those in the south. That could be represented as, I guess, their New Year, right? So that's the balance in the other direction if you want to break it up. Polarity. So yeah, I'll just finish with that thought, and before we get into the next chapter 5, which is the moon and kind of a mirror and how that is represented in that same structure. So before I do close it out, to kind of give a physical representation, you can even stand in your room, I've done this, and walk around in a clockwise, and you'd see a sun come up, and then you'd see it behind you phase away, and that sun is going to shift in an arc, right? And then you have these, magnetics. We have that is foundational in our structure. So before we continue, these are simple observations that people can do. And the nice thing in our day and age is like everybody has a really good camera in their pocket. And I should reference not everybody. Some people don't have that opportunity, but a lot of us do. And so we can tap into that and just see for yourself. You don't need anybody. And it's really cool when people have done the time-lapse photos. They're really neat, actually. So all right, I'm gonna pause and reset for a minute again, and then just we'll finish with 5, 6, and 7 and continue.